Welcome to BitBlayer One's weekly technical analysis update. And here's the S&P 500. The month did close, so it's good practice to just go look at the candle. We see it's a lower high than the month before, a slightly lower one. Basically right there, barely lower. Lower low. Okay. Going into the weekly, 4 lower highs. 1 low and gradual lower lows, but we have not broken this one as of yet. I would say this is like, let's go to a 4 hour. It's probably much easier to see the trend here. It's still not easy to see the trend. So here are our 4 lower highs that we saw all the way on the monthly chart and on the weekly chart. Here is how the trend would go in my eyes. There's one, we started at high, low, lower high, lower low, lower high, higher low, lower high, lower low. So very choppy. Like I said, we're getting to chop area, and it's really taking its time. This zone started in September last year, you could say. It would officially have started in October. Yeah. Between October and November is where we kind of got a range, and we've just been kind of stuck in there. I'm going to move this important zone for trend break, because the true one we're really watching for is that guy. I'm going to delete this channel because odds are we don't just pump all the way up to 7,200. We could. Maybe what I'll do is I like sometimes to create a group. So I'll hover over it, open up my channels group, I'll hover over it, and I'll right click and go to new group, name this one old, I guess I can name it here, and then that group I'll keep hidden. Moving on to NASDAQ, let's look at the monthly candle. It was, nothing too eventful. We have 2 lower highs, 2 lower lows. Let's see what comes of that on the weekly. Yeah, you can see the trend is basically down. It's just not really breaking out of our zone here. Let's do the same thing we did with the S&P, where we get these drawings kind of out of our way, but we don't want to fully lose them. So I'll just come here. Are these both in the same group here? I will rename this channels group to old. Then I will hide them. There's really not much to say here, but here's a daily chart, just chopping around. I will move this important trend break line that we have to, well, I suppose it should be the bottom of this zone. I'll put it here because I think that will match up more with the S&P. But hopefully maybe this is the week. Could be. There's a lot of news catalysts. Let's look at the monthly candle real quick, like we're doing the others. Jeez. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months all green on the Dow Jones in a row. 10 months in a row, all green candles. Wow. Weekly candle. See, now this one is more substantial. Like, this one is much worse. Like, this was the best chart, and now things are breaking down, which leaves clues to the other indexes could possibly start doing this as well. Like, those ranges might break finally, and it would likely be to the downside if, I mean, heck, did we confirm a downtrend on a weekly here? I think we might have. So this is actually a pretty big deal. Here's what I like to do to actually like really make sure it's confirmed. I like to wait for a close below the trend. Because in trading, there are a lot of fake outs, so you can wait for a daily candle close to really confirm. If we close below this line, it's a confirmation in my eyes. If we hold above this line, and it was just a wick down right at the open, well, that might be a little different. Yeah, Dow Jones officially broke this long-term upwards channel trend line and potentially broke its weekly trend. So this one's actually pretty huge. For me, on my own, which I would never recommend to someone else as financial advice, I'll be looking at all 4 indexes to try to find out which one is the weakest and start looking for shorts, potentially long-term shorts. Okay, monthly candle on the Russell looks better than the others. Lower high, but higher low. Let's zoom into the weekly. What I will do is move this channel. Let's go to the daily real quick because this is where I drew the channels. Yeah, this one I don't see us coming into play in the near future, so I'll mark it as old and hide it. There we go. Move that up, save. This one has a little more potential to be actually come into play, so I'll leave that there. We don't have that important trend break line on this chart, so let's do it. This would be the line. We're getting close to it. We do have 3 lower highs, but also many other touches up there that failed to break. We're getting a big lower wick on all of the indexes, so do your due diligence. Don't just immediately assume that everything's broken, everything's gone. Wait for a day close confirmation below trends, to actually be official definitions of trend breaks and etc. So Russell looked pretty bad, but we haven't officially confirmed until we get a close. Everything could be potentially breaking down here, but we do need a little more time to officially get confirmation. Alright, this is the dollar index here. The last 2 months look pretty strong. Weekly chart, again, also looks a little strong. We could be holding this long-term bottom trend line there. Looks like it's holding again for now. To the daily, we're coming up to it, but it could still just be another lower high. Again, just more and more waiting on the dollar. But put your alerts. This one's very important. Alright, Bitcoin, everyone's favorite, the hardest one to read, the one that has the most reward when you get in at the lows. Okay, so monthly candle. Last month looked terrible. It was a gap. Didn't realize there was a gap in the monthly candles. That's wild. Let's do the same thing we did on the others here. So I'm going to take this channel. I don't see it coming into play. So make a new group. This one also will go in that group. We'll name the group old, and we will hide them. Okay. Important zone for trend break. We will now switch that to just be a normal monthly line because weekly chart, clear downtrend, super downtrend, very obvious. High, low, lower high, lower low. Let's look at the daily. We are just chopping around, and that is normal. after you have such a big move, it's very often we go sideways before the next move. You can see that by looking at like the Bollinger Band with percentile. Bollinger Bands show volatility, and when they get too wide, they then contract. Volatility goes from really high volatility to low volatility, and that's, you can use volatility as a way to time trades. We'll get into that as these videos progress and we get more advanced. But this actually looks a lot like a flag. Whenever you see like a long, a long leg and then you tighten up in the shape of a triangle, they call that a pennant or a flag. I just call everything a flag. I don't get too in detail about the terminology, but here, so I would draw my channels to signify the ends of the flag. So the top part here we'll do in red, the bottom part we'll do in green. I will adjust these, don't worry. But I would say actually this is probably pretty close. What I did was I ensured to catch that wick and this wick, these two wicks here. For this, I will actually raise it up to the top wick of that one. So anything else I want to capture, I guess bring it to there. That way all of these top wicks except this last one are included. These are very short-term channels, right? But they do give you a guide as to if we're towards the top or the bottom, and then these come into play a lot better when you look at an hourly chart, right? So you draw them on a daily because daily is more important than the hourly, but you can switch into the hourly, and now you can see there's actually some movement here that you can kind of play off. And now that I have that Fibonacci drawn to, I can see, okay, here's that 786. This also, I believe, is a weekly line. No, that's the current price, sorry. But this is our monthly zone. We have this upper trend line channel. We have the lower channel here in the Fibonacci. You can use all of these clues to kind of guesstimate, get ideas of what will happen, but this is not financial advice. And let's look at the bigger picture. Yeah, this one's tough. Like, part of me thinks this was the bottom, but until we start getting out of this sideways consolidation trend line zone, we'll just go to 4 hour, make it easier to see. I believe this was the bottom, but until we get out of this zone, it's very hard to tell. Okay, here we are with gold. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 green months in a row. Alright, weekly chart. This trend line is still intact. We're really getting up there. We have this daily zone we've drawn before. It looks like it's coming into play now. We're in between the 786 and 886 Fibonacci's. This is interesting. This thing is such a beast. I made a good trade off of this. I'll show you guys now. This is on a 4 hourly. Alright, so the trade I made was, I saw this line, how it was being regarded as top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a bunch of times, just a whole bunch of times here. But I saw we were getting higher lows, which you can see here. And then when we finally broke this zone, I waited until we came back and tested the zone again as a bottom, and that gave me a clue that it was going to go up towards the top. I actually traded, I did a double trade. This one, so I saw we broke through. Let's look at the hourly, or 15 minute, sure, yeah. Let's do it. I saw we broke through, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to wait for a retest on that zone. Perfect. Did it, I got in, and then I actually had another random trend line drawn that came into play. So let's see if I can kind of redraw it. I remember the direction it was. Yeah, okay. It was off of these, basically. So let's close our other one, and see how I had something with these lows, basically. The big wicks, there was 3 kind of high lows, and also you could see there was some reaction here when it did kind of fall through. It was a little bit of heavy reaction. But anyways, it was an old one I had drawn. I didn't really have it as a resistance or support. It was just a normal trend line, and I noticed that we were coming up on it, so I got out of my long, and then I waited again for this zone and got into a new long, and now I have closed that long at this new zone. So basically, you know, the play is they typically go from zone to zone. Once you get through one, it'll quickly rush to the other one. Sometimes Fibonacci's will get in the way, and you'll see some reactions there. Like at this 707, we did have a little bit of a pause, but powered right through. We opened up above the 786, and then kind of tried to go through it, but recovered it, and then used it as a bottom a couple times. Now we have this daily zone that we hit, and we haven't come back. We can see actually lower highs, lower lows here. Like, even though, see how it's an hourly candle, and they're very tiny, but I can tell, like, and you can too, with just a little practice, is you can tell these are lower highs. You know, they're very slightly, but these are also lower lows, and you can kind of just see what the inside of the candle will look like. So here's an example. Let's look at a 3 minute. So yeah, see, lower highs, lower lows, and this is what the 3 minute looks like, but you can also just tell in an hourly that that's what's happening. I still believe, I don't know for sure, that this was a climax top. We'll see. It's really the volume is what did it for me, and the drastic move down. So I am of the opinion that we don't break that for a new all-time high. I think that was it. This would be a good area for a lower high, right? We have this zone that we kind of defined over here because there was a gap, and then there was also a final touch right before the big leg down. Yeah, I want to say it looks like this is a good area to scout for lower highs, but stay cautious. You know, watch the price action. We could just power all the way through to a new all-time high. Be it 6K gold, 7K gold, who knows? Times are crazy. There is one thing of note. So looking at the Bitcoin overlay, you can see the direction, and you can see how gold's direction is going really far up as Bitcoin's been going down. Maybe there's a case that we get some rotation of money out of gold into Bitcoin. It is just a thought, but it could come to fruition. But anyways, gold technically looks good. Really low, higher lows, higher highs. So yes, I think on a macro, like on a monthly or weekly would look better, I bet. On a weekly, I think we're looking for a lower high. And our important trend break zone line is now, let's remove that, unlock that. It's that level. Or I suppose it could be this one. Yeah, let's move it to there. That's an important zone for trend break for gold. Silver is much weaker. We did have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months of all green. Starting off the month red. Looking at the weekly, I still think this was a climax. It hasn't recovered anywhere near as much. We're at the 50% recovery zone coming up in the 618. This channel may come into play some more. I think what's going to happen is this will top out much lower than gold does. It won't get another all-time high. It's not looking too great. 618 and this trend line are going to kind of coordinate together, which is even more of a convincing signal that it's going to turn around at that area, but who knows. Let's draw our important trend break line because that is here, and we'll move on. Alright, here's a more exciting one everyone's been waiting for. Oil. Last 2 months, both green. Didn't realize that. Weekly candle, looking great. Like, pretty big acceleration on these lows. But really the thing I've been waiting so long for. And this is exactly how it happens. You wait for a news catalyst, you get the catalyst, and then the market, what they do is they'll move the price so much. They'll move the price so much over the weekend or after hours so that it can get outside of this channel, because it's been years, since 2023, 3 years this channel has been holding as resistance, and now we've totally cleared it and we're outside of it. So that gives us room now to come back down and retest it as a bottom. So this is what it looks like when we kind of flip from a resistance to a support channel. I'm actually going to do it. There we go. It's a green one now. So what do we do here? We have to zoom in. Let's see. Let's do 4 hour. Lows are just continuing up. I think what I'll do is I'll draw a channel here just to capture the bottoms, because that will most likely become a guide later. I just drew it so that it captured. Let's zoom in a bit. I'm going to capture all of the price action this time. Color it green, yep. So we have all of our wicks and most of the kind of touches. There we go, got it there. And that we drew, it's not super strong because we drew it on a 4 hour, but it will most likely come into play. So my thoughts here are definitely give it some time to chill. I mean, not financial advice anyways, but there is also something to be said with, you can just buy this thing because I guarantee there's going to be some type of upwards movement today. I don't think that it opens up here and then only goes down from there. Who knows? But when there's big news like this, odds are it's going to continue. You know, we haven't even had a full market day. It's just been overnight session. So, yeah, good chance. I personally am going to wait for this to become a bottom. I'm going to let it kind of chill out, come down to this area. Also, there is this gap. If we look on the daily, we can see how big the gap is. People, they like to fill gaps. They really do, because it causes an imbalance and etc. This would be actually a really good spot. If we get the nexus between these two trend lines, this one that's now a support, This one that's basically our current guide, and it would fill the gap at that same area. So that is a really high probability area. But oil, yep, we're out of the thing. We're out of the zone. We've beaten the trend line so far. And now finally natural gas. I was looking at this because I think it's pretty obvious I'm in a trade on this. And maybe this is cope, but it looks like this line has been broken, and we have it on a daily confirmation. Well, this line looks like it's been broken on a daily close, and this up here could be a little bit of relief to the bottom of it as a test before further downside. So this is actually pretty important. I think what I'm going to do is exit some of my trade. This one, I'm not doing futures contracts. I mean, I have one contract, but that expires in months. So what I'm going to do for that one is wait until we break this low, because that's the true trend definition. I suppose we did break this low. So after seeing all of this, I will be exiting at least half of my trade. Yeah, at least half. I have shares of UNG instead of just future contracts. So some of those I'll be holding indefinitely, just because, you know, even if it takes years to play out, that's fine. I'm fine with that. I'm okay with it taking years to play out, because when you look at a monthly, it does appear, everything aside, it does appear like these lows have transitioned to going lower, from going lower to going higher. The highs were getting lower, the highs are getting higher generally. So it does seem like to me that we have found a bottom. Just this thing might take, this is literally 2009, so the amount of time this thing might take to actually change is pretty substantial. It is considered energy, and energy is kind of a hot topic right now, so yeah, another reason why I'm going to stay. But yeah, basically, it looks like this trend line's been broken, and we got a lower low. So it could, you know, be over. Could be over. Winter's supposed to be ending soon. I told you what my plan was, and I'll leave it at that.